Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show, and I want to give you your tasking for the day. Man, it's Tuesday already. I was in Albany yesterday, and I spoke in front of a group of people that were there to protest, really, Governor Cuomo and all the things that he's done as far as limiting the freedoms of people. And it made me think, after talking to all these individuals that were up there, standing together as free people. And so I want to give you your tasking today. I think I may have said this before, but I want you to take time out today and think about what you consider freedom actually is. What is freedom to you? I want you to consider that, and then I'm going to discuss that a little bit. Let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back in on the Experts Podcast. It's Tuesday, and the truth has arrived. So as I was just saying there at the beginning of the show, I was in Albany. Got to give a speech to a lot of very motivated people. It's probably why my voice is a little raspy. I didn't hold back. And, you know, it's interesting. The people that I saw up there and the people that I got to meet, every time I go to one of these rallies or protests, whatever you want to call it, I call it a protest. I mean, every time I go to one of these, you know, this is different than the Black Lives Matter protest or, you know, whatever they're doing in Portland, you know, these types of weirdo leftists and communists. When I'm around these people, these free people that are complaining about how their freedom is being injured, the one thing that I definitely get out of all the other things, two things, I guess you could say. One is the fact that they're showing up. I mean, these people are showing up, and there's thousands, folks. I don't know if you've been to one of these rallies, whether it's Back to Blue or people standing up against the way that these governors are handling the COVID crisis that they've made up. It's pretty inspiring, and you should be there. You're missing out on some historical things. I mean, you have less than 90 days or not right around 90 days now before the election in November. It may never be the same in this country. And this is historic, the people that are getting together. And I know there's people out there saying, no, this is, you know, you're being a little ridiculous. No, I'm not. And when you go see this live, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing is the fact that these people are out there. The other thing is how much they understand about what freedom is all about and how little other people actually get it. You know, I talked to somebody recently who grew up liberal. They really, you know, in their adult life really just didn't even contemplate it, but pretty much voted Democrat. And they went to a Back to Blue rally, and they had Black Lives Matter there. Remember, Black Lives Matter is not it's not a group that's out there to help Black lives. I mean, that's obvious. They've done nothing. It's not like they just appeared out of nowhere. They've been around for quite a while. The people who started are communist, black separatists who are beholden to the Democrat Party. That's where their money goes, to the tune over $1 billion. They've done nothing in the inner city. They've done, I don't know, one black person whose life has been changed by Black Lives Matter. And I've talked to a lot. This person that I knew that I know that went to one of these Back to Blue protests and Black Lives Matter was there, their response was this: it was like a bunch of animals, the way they acted. And the majority of people that were there, rioting or trying to riot for Black Lives Matter are lily white kids who have no understanding of freedom or what the police actually do. It's not like people from the inner city, black people, are showing up to protest with Black Lives Matter. It's not happening that way. Most of them know the reality of it. They're not going to do anything in the inner city for them. They haven't done anything in the inner city for them. In fact, I was going to save this till later, but here's a nice little soundbite from one. It's got to be one of the biggest turds in government. This guy, his name is, he's Illinois Representative LaShawn K. Ford. Proud black man. And he is, as I said, a representative in Illinois who believes that they should get rid of history lesson plans because it leads to white privilege and a racist society. Listen to his own words.
I'm calling for the abolishment of history classes in Illinois. We're concerned that current school history teachings lead to white privilege and a racist society.
Genius. You know, I got to be honest with you. I am a very compassionate person. And I, as anybody that knows me would tell you, I stand for the Constitution. I'd give my life for it and all the freedoms in it. And the fact that it makes every man and woman, no matter what their skin color is, it's the stupidest thing ever to judge somebody on the color of their skin or to want to be judged because of the color of your skin. I don't look at any of that stuff. Sexuality, gender, race. I don't recognize minority because I look at the individual and I say, can you achieve this? Can you accomplish it? This stuff, I'll just tell it like it is. I'm sick of it. It's done nothing for this country. And weirdos like that guy, trust me, if he had white skin, which none of us actually have white skin, it's more of an olive, off-white. I guess albinos do. But, and I'm not saying that to be sarcastic. I hate the classification of skin color. But I guarantee you that idiot, it doesn't matter if he had white skin or purple skin or if he green and was from some other planet, he'd still be an idiot. And I'm just to my wit's end with this. I go and meet people who understand freedom, who are black, white, women, men, gay, straight, all of them. I meet them all. They're at these rallies. They're amazing people. They're not complaining because life is hard. They're complaining because people are trying to steal the freedom that was granted to them in the Constitution. So I give this speech. I come home. I put part of the speech on social media. I could play the entirety of the speech. I may do that here in a minute, but I put a part of the speech on there, and I'm talking about freedom, and I'm talking about this very thing. And a guy comes on to my Facebook page, and you know, listen, I did not have an argument with him. I had a legitimate discussion. I'm waiting for another response from him after my last one, but his initial response underneath the video was that freedom is subjective. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I told him. The freedom it's not subjective. I asked him to define what he means, what he thinks freedom is. And that's why I asked you at the beginning of the show, what do you think freedom is? Because it's clear that this guy, and again, I'm not trying to insult the guy. I mean, at least he was open and honest about what he thought, you know, and I give him that. I would rather somebody say something completely ridiculous, but at least they voiced it, and they're not voicing it to be a true troll, which, you know, I don't know if the guy's trying to be a troll, but he definitely went back and forth with me and actually said he agreed with some things. So his name's Jeremy. I won't say his last name on there, but he said, freedom is a relative term, and your idea of freedom may not be the same as mine or anyone else's. And then, of course, somebody called him stupid for saying that. But instead of reacting like that, I made it clear that I've bled for freedom. And so I have a much different, I say better grasp on what freedom actually is. And so I said, how about you define what freedom is to you? And he did. But and again, Jeremy, if you listen to this, I don't know if you listen to my podcast, but I thank you for responding. Like I said today, I said, I hope Democrats are at the rally. If you are, thank you for being here. I know Republicans were there. Thank you for being there. And libertarians, thank you for being there. And then after they all got to clapping for themselves, I said, listen, none of that stuff matters. There's only one thing that matters, and that's freedom in this country. I mean, God, of course, matters above all. But when it comes to what's happening right now, freedom. Not whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, not whether you're against the vaccines or you don't want to have to wear a mask or you want your gym open or if your parents or grandparents were killed in a nursing home because of Cuomo's stupidity in New York City or in Pennsylvania or in any of these other locations. It's freedom. You're being oppressed, truly oppressed. This is what's so interesting about it. You're truly being oppressed. All this talk about oppression. Most people have never known oppression until now. Seriously. So this is what Jeremy said freedom is to him. Freedom to me is the ability to choose how to live my life when those choices have no ill effect on others. So if I'm walking down the street and get harassed only because of the color of my skin or the clothes I choose to wear, then there is still work to be done in fighting for freedom. Okay. Part of what he said is right. Freedom to him, and really the reality is freedom is the ability to choose how you want to live your life as long as those choices don't have any ill effect on others. That's absolutely correct. But the other part is highly misguided. And I voiced that to him. And I said, here is where your argument goes or falls short. And so basically, to sum it up, this is what I was telling him, that in his story, let's say person A is the person walking down the street and person B is the person harassing him. Let's assume it's two guys. Okay. Well, person A that's walking down the street, he has the freedom to walk down that street. And person B has the freedom to say what they want. If they hate them or if they love what they're wearing, they have the freedom. Person B has the freedom to say that. As much as it may pain some people or make people feel good because, everybody seems to be a narcissist now and they want to know how everybody feels about them. They want it to be good. But either way, they both have freedom. Both have freedom to go where they want. Both have freedom of speech. It's called freedom. Okay. Now, I wanted to make it clear that I understand that freedom of speech can be regulated so that the person walking down the street in his story, in Jeremy's story, is not harassed. Absolutely, it could be regulated. The problem is if speech is regulated to keep somebody from getting insulted or harassed, you are then also limiting the speech of the person who's getting harassed. You can't just limit the speech of one person and not expect to limit the speech of another because typically, well, not typically, the government is the one who's going to limit that speech. And we know by what history shows us is that by and large governments, when they regulate freedoms, it does not end well. They do not have the best interests of the people at heart most of the times. These are professional, as I explained on here over and over. Politicians are professional. I don't want to call them leaders. They are people who have striven to be in a position to affect change or affect policy in a nation. And more often than not, they are people that strove to reach that pinnacle of policy because they wanted to be noticed or because they wanted to feel power, not because they're just good people looking out for the Constitution. That is not from what I've been able to see in studying psychology and political science in college. I did not see when I went to Washington, D.C. I did not see when I worked for the government. And I still do not see, by the way, all these things are being handled, these crises, the COVID and all these other crises. The way all this stuff is being handled is incompetent at best, and absolute malpractice of leadership at worst, where they're killing people because of their decisions. Also, a lot of the times when it comes to freedom, people confuse oppression and harassment. And, I always say this, that, freedom of speech gives you the right to say what you want, but it doesn't protect you from being punched in the face by an individual that you're saying it to. That can always happen. There will almost always be ramifications for your speech, whether it's good and you make somebody feel good, or it's bad and you make somebody feel bad. But again, if I limit you from saying things that I don't like, that means I'm also limited now in my freedom. That's something that people need to realize. Now, I'm talking about a perfect free nation where the Democrat Party does not exist, because we've seen that that's not the way that they work. Just like, Governor Cuomo, for instance, he tells everybody, if you come to New York, you have to, and you're going to stay more than 24 hours, you have to quarantine for 14 days. And if you leave and go to a certain hot spot and then you come back, you're going to have to quarantine. But he doesn't do that. He goes and comes back and doesn't quarantine. That's the way that the Democrat Party works. Do as I say, or else we'll have you arrested. And I don't know if people have realized that, but that's really the way it's been going now. The way all these Democrat governors and mayors are treating the people, they're not saying, let's do this in the best interest of those who are most affected by the virus. They're not saying we need to do this and stand together. They're saying you will do it this way or you will be arrested. That is far left and is close to a fascist, communist type of regime that we've ever seen in this nation. Now, I go back and forth with this guy, Jeremy, and not in a bad way. I try to keep it civil, and we did. But the great paradox of freedom, which I try to explain, is that if you regulate freedom, it's not freedom at all. Freedom is the freedoms that we have are there so that we can choose to be good, because nobody is going to make you good. The reality of hate speech in any nation is the fact that ethics and morals have decreased. Wherever you see a breakdown in the family unit, wherever you see a breakdown in morals and religion, you're going to see an uptick in hate speech, in just bad manners and unethical behavior. It's going to appear. We have in this country and around the world, but in this country, there's basically no family unit anymore, which is exactly what Black Lives Matter preaches. So it's going to get better that way. There's basically no family unit anymore. There's basically people just bypass religion and push it off to the side. Very few people pray or even walk with God on a daily basis anymore. We're in a bad way in this nation and in this world. And that is where true hate speech, that is where bad behavior comes from. And there is no true way to regulate it except by reestablishing the family unit, reestablishing the morals and ethics in a nation. That's how you fix that problem. Not through regulation. That never works. Never. Now, it's not that I want to transition away from this, because this is the theme of today's show, is the fact that freedom is something that was established in this nation when the Declaration of Independence was signed and we broke free from Great Britain and the Constitution was written. And in that Constitution, the Bill of Rights, with the God-given rights that man has in this country, bestowed on all, and through a period of time, because of the way it was written, all people have become equal in the eyes of the law, equal as far as your basis of opportunity in life. I know, listen, people say, but that's not true. I grew up in the hood, or I grew up poor over here. Well, so did I. I grew up poor, extremely poor. But I'm telling you, I've locked up just as many rich people as I have people who are poor, because it's called bad decisions. And you can make great decisions and become somebody. You don't have to be rich for that. You don't have to be white. Go tell that to the people that I know that are world famous neurosurgeon who's black, or Navy SEALs who are black. You have fighter pilots who are black. Right now we have the first female black fighter pilot. So as I'm thinking about this stuff, I'm meeting these people, I'm thinking about what freedom is all about, I'm engaging with these people on Facebook. I go on Twitter, and there Naval Special Warfare is again. Naval Special Warfare is where the SEALs reside. And this time, it's the same story. With Eddie Gallagher, he was totally raked over the coals by leftist SEALs. Yeah, there's apparently leftist SEALs now, people who are backstabbing non-brothers. There's admirals who disobey, SEAL admirals that disobey the President of the United States. There is NCIS and Naval Criminal Investigative Services who do things that are so illegal as far as investigating a crime, along with the Navy's JAG Corps. That's their attorneys in the Navy. Their behavior was so terrible in the Eddie Gallagher case that it was basically criminal. I don't know how they ever got around that, not getting charged. Another guy I knew, I was in buds with, Keith Berry. It comes out, this guy was charged with rape, spent time in prison, and then was released and all charges dropped because they found out it's a lie, that the girl, he never raped anybody, and he was convicted primarily, and this was coming from the judge who retired, that the pressure came from Congress for them to get more convictions of rape. And that's why Keith Berry spent time in prison. So these people are, once again, the same leftist type of screw the warrior type of mentality is in the news again. And why are they in the news? Well, I apparently, they do demonstrations from time to time. And there was a demonstration they were doing with the Naval Special Warfare working dogs, right? These are the Belgian Malinois that are just amazing at attacking. And typically, and even in this case, the person getting hit is wearing a turban, because that's primarily who we're fighting right now, even though communism is the biggest enemy. We're primarily fighting Islamic terrorists over in the Middle East. And so when these dogs, the guy will wear the big bite suit, and the dogs will come at him and attack him. And this time they decided, freaking team guys, they decided to throw a Colin Kaepernick jersey on and wear that. Now, team guys are notorious for not thinking things through, and clearly they didn't think this through. But listen, on the other hand, Colin Kaepernick is a communist. His girlfriend is a communist. They hang out with communists and black separatists who basically practice black liberation theology, which I've described before, liberation theology, Catholic liberation theology, black liberation theology. All of these are basically, it doesn't have anything to do with Catholicism. They're basically separatist groups. I was going to say it didn't really have anything to do with being black either, but these people are actually black separatists. They're no different than the KKK that are white. These people are black. They all want to be separate. They're all stupid. They all say the same dumb things, and it's all based on race. I mean, look, I call it out like it is. I think it's stupid no matter what. And what's crazy is that they try to say, at the same time they're passing all these laws or they're making all these mandates or doing all these things to push out Black Lives Matter and making sure everybody's equal and making sure that everybody's included, and they could just talk this big talk, and when it all comes down to it, they're a vast majority of the people who are the activists are actually separatists or communists. And Colin Kaepernick is one of those people. So they're putting on Colin Kaepernick's jersey. I don't look at it as they're having dogs bite somebody who's representing a black guy. I look at it as Colin Kaepernick's a communist, the biggest threat to our national security, bigger than ISIS. ISIS is never going to take over this country. They may give us 1-2 punch every now and then. They're not going to take over this country. But communism is damn near close. So I don't have a problem with them biting on a dude who's wearing a Colin Kaepernick jersey. Where was Naval Special Warfare all these times when they were wearing, a turban representing somebody from the Middle East? They didn't seem to complain about that. I mean, here's the fact. SEALs are killers. That's what we're trained to do. Find the enemy, do surveillance, and eventually kill. That's what we're trained to do. So what does Naval Special Warfare do? They go and they make a nice public statement, just like a leftist. They retweet the video from this guy, Billy Corbin. If you go look at his Twitter feed, it's all leftist stuff. I mean, extreme leftist, communist. And Naval Special Warfare retweets the video with an apology statement, saying that they became aware today of a video of a Navy SEAL Museum event posted last year, so it was last year, with a military working dog demonstration. In the demonstration, the target is wearing a Colin Kaepernick jersey. The inherent message of this video is completely inconsistent with the values and ethos. By the way, this bullshit ethos that they always talk about, and listen, other team guys, you guys may disagree with me on this, whatever. I went through BUD/S in 97. I never heard a damn thing about any ethos. That's all created since 9/11. Afterwards, way after that. And it just reeks of this leftist kiss ass, hey, notice us. We're good guys. And this whole image that gets put out here is terrible. They go on to say the values and ethos of Naval Special Warfare and the U.S. Navy. We are investigating the matter fully. Once again, they're going to take it down, not only investigating it, but put it out publicly. Okay? They're going to investigate the matter fully. And initial indications are that there were no active duty Navy personnel or equipment involved in this independent organization's event. Then why even say anything about it? I'll tell you why. Because the leaders in Naval Special Warfare are led by leftists. Admiral Green, who's still in, Admiral McCraven, who's now out, all these different admirals that were in there, they're leftists. You got on the other side, in the Army, you got McChrystal, who everybody worshipped. I thought he was a great guy, total leftist, working with Twitter to undermine Trump, admittedly, with DARPA technology. You have all these countless generals from the Army and some more admirals, all leftists, all going against Trump. Why? Because he doesn't stand for this. He doesn't agree with the leftist movement. He doesn't agree with how useless they are. And so I'm going to say this once again. I don't care if you're another team guy and you don't like what I'm saying. You are the one that should be standing up and making public announcements by the multitude. Yeah, I know you're silent, and all this nonsense. Listen, the very fact that we're not hearing from more team guys right now and special forces and rangers and cops. Meanwhile, your country is just being destroyed by leftists. The very fact that you all aren't speaking up and doing more and coming out to these events is shameful. It goes against the real ethos, which is called the Constitution. I don't need an ethos. I don't need some made-up thing that they made up recently to try to make the SEAL teams look good. It's gone completely crazy. Ask Eddie Gallagher about the ethos. That guy was out there doing his duty in a war zone against people who were trying to kill them. They just got through killing like 50 people. And when you look at the reality of what happened with Eddie Gallagher, he was doing his job. And it just went down this road because these little pansies, they were I don't even use the word teammates, his squad mates. And I don't have to rehash this whole thing, but the admiral who was involved, Admiral Green, is a perfect example of this. So now Naval Special Warfare, they could have just kept their mouths shut. If these guys were former SEALs using their own equipment and their own dogs in a private institute, the Navy UDT SEAL Museum, why on earth would the SEAL teams and Naval Special Warfare come out and say anything and apologize? Had nothing to do with them. We can do whatever we want on our own time. And even if it was active duty SEALs, why come out and apologize? What is this all about? Well, I can tell you. It's leftist in the DOD. They've corrupted everything. The last place where men can be men, where warriors exist, where they do the job, the dirty job of killing better than anyone else for freedom and for this nation. Totally tarnished. Along with all the rest of them, all the rest of the branches of the military. And it not only pains me, it worries me greatly. Because who knows what the left is up to now? Who knows if Joe Biden gets in? Listen, I'm not a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory guy, but look, we're as close to martial law in some of these states that you can get without them uttering the words martial law. And here we are, 90 days away from an election, more or less, where we could completely lose to the left, and this would overtake us. Meanwhile, these freaking knuckleheads on the left are still fighting amongst each other. That's the only thing that saving grace we may have. The Minneapolis mayor, the only guy less or more effeminate than Justin Trudeau in Canada. He looks like his effeminate twin. He's pissed off because the governor, who's also a Democrat, didn't react fast enough when all this stuff was going down after George Floyd's death. Big surprise there, right? Big surprise. Melee, chaos, fire and brimstone caused by rioters, and the Democrats don't react fast enough. Where have you heard that before? Benghazi. No surprise there. And you know what? Let's take a break. I'm going to come back because this is really, I want to cap it off with this, okay? Has something to do with what Ted Cruz accused the Pentagon, goes right along with what I'm talking about today, but there's a certain little group that's involved in all of this constantly. We'll be right back. Now, I know you guys hear me talk about my books all the time on this show, but I have to tell you, if you have not ordered Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, right now is the time when you should be doing that. Honestly, look around. Is anything getting safer in this country? I don't think so. And you need to start taking responsibility for your safety. You may not have law enforcement showing up at your place. So now is the time when you need to assess your threats. Now, the way you do that, the way you assess your threats, is you read Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and you apply what I teach you in that book. The first half of the book is set up to show you how attackers look at you, why they would attack, who would attack, when it would happen, where it would happen, and how it would be carried out. You divide your life into sectors, and basically, it's not rocket science. You look at yourself from their point of view. I just show you how they do it. The second half of the book shows you how to take what you've learned and then build better defenses, awareness, plans of action, and strategies to mitigate these threats of attack. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. There's 2 workbooks that go with it that you can order after that and actually apply it. Workbook number 1 is the Threat Assessment Workbook, and workbook number 2 is the Defense Assessment Workbook. So they go right along with the book. The first one is like the first half of Sheep No More. The second one is like the second half. And then, because I just didn't think that was enough for you to secure your home, I came up with a children's book with Danielle Kreiner, who did the illustration of it. We put safety, communication, and awareness lessons all in the pictures. It's called The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And why is it a parent's book for children? Because you go to teamlittlebigs.com and get the lesson plans, hand the book of pictures to your child, and then you teach them 2 to 8 on awareness, communication, and safety. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It's 2 workbooks, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. This is how you secure your homeland. Okay. I had to take a break there for a second because I was getting overheated. You know, it's used to be a fine line where I had to walk this line with, talking about the SEAL teams and naval special warfare, just like I used to be with Fox News or anything else, for that matter. The gloves are off. I really don't care anymore because people are just sitting by and allowing this country to crumble. And what does it matter anymore? What does it matter? I piss off some team guys. You all need to start stepping up to the plate. I'm just freaking absolutely. I go to these rallies. I see the people that we're supposedly defending their freedom, and they're completely helpless. Mainly because the men of naval special warfare, the last place where real men exist, have completely folded their cards and do nothing. And the ones, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, the worst of the worst are the guys who are retired and who no longer serve. They don't do anything. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to get in trouble. It's ridiculous. I wish I could put out a call to arms and people respond, but I don't expect them to. I hope you all hear this. And I hope it makes your blood boil, because it should. You're doing nothing. The country is crumbling by lesser men. Way lesser men. And it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. And when I look at the headlines, it's not just naval special warfare. I'm not letting everybody else off the hook. But the reality is I've been to the top of the mountain. Naval special warfare is the top of that mountain. It's the tip of the spear. And I just cannot fathom why what is happening to this country is being allowed to happen by these warriors who went through so much so much and understand what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. You all understand what freedom is all about better than anyone else. And still you're allowing this to happen. You know, the majority of people that are in media, as I've talked about before, are bullshit artists. They're narcissists. They know nothing. They've done nothing. They're just good at talking. And you all have just given the reign over to them. Let them save the country. Let those people speak out. It's insulting, to be honest with you. And listen, I feel the same with cops. I'm sitting here watching video of cops in Washington, D.C. arresting people who have on their shirts not just Black Lives Matter, but Black Unborn Lives Matter. What's the difference, right? Because so many Black babies are aborted every year. It's just accepted in the inner city. And so these protesters, black and white, are in front of Planned Parenthood in Washington, D.C. with chalk. We're not talking about paint like de Blasio, who admits now that they didn't even give a permit to paint all over the roads in New York City. They just did it with the government, with de Blasio's blessing. So these people were on the sidewalk with chalk, which they do every weekend. And the Washington, D.C. police, led by some turd with tattoos all over his arms, arrested these people for chalk. It could have been washed off. They weren't hurting anybody. They weren't breaking anything. They used chalk. They weren't locking federal officers in a building and trying to light it on fire. So the same way I'm feeling about naval special warfare right now, I feel the exact same way about police in this country. You're freaking useless. You're useless because you're doing the deeds of the communists and you're not complaining. You're not standing up together. Yeah, you'll get your pension. You'll get your pension. You'll get to sit back and live in a communist state. And all you liberals, you're just as much to blame. The conservatives are blame. I'm blaming everybody. You're all sitting back and you're all watching this occur and you're all bitching and complaining because you got to wear a mask or because, you know, there might be a vaccine come out. You might have to, they're going to try to force you to take the vaccine or whatever other thing it is. You bitch and complain and nobody does anything about it to stop it. You don't see, you see these idiots in Portland protesting night after night after night with slingshots, with urine and feces and makeshift shields that they made out of garbage cans. And yet the people, the rest of us that understand freedom, doing nothing. You're not showing up 10,000 strong to not let these governors, these corrupt governors, keeping them from going to work. Or you want to sit here and complain about how fake CNN is and MSNBC and Fox News has gone down this hill and you want to complain about it and nobody gets up and does anything about it. I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know what to do. I come back from these rallies and I have to sit and realize that one of the people there gave an impassioned speech today saying, we're going to get them. They're going to, we're going to take them to task and this, that. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, nothing that they just said is going to happen. Literally nothing. Because the people won't get up and do anything. Because men like the men of naval special warfare have allowed this to happen. Now, when I look at Ted Cruz and what he's going and saying that, not accusing, I mean, he is accusing the Pentagon of cultural hostilities towards religion, but the reality is they are. They blocked a Christian Air Force vet from talking to some Marines. Why? Makes no sense whatsoever. You go through the story, it's on foxnews.com. You go through the story, makes no sense whatsoever. He then goes on to talk about how he's going back and forth against the Secretary of Defense But here's the thing that I was going to bring this up before, and I'm not going to say a lot about today, but I wanted to ask you. I want you to go look up this guy, Michael L. His middle nickname is Mikey Weinstein. He's an attorney for Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Now, don't mistake the name for people who are fighting for religious freedom. These people are fighting against it. And this guy, Mikey Weinstein, just look at his bio. The guy loves himself. He's obviously a narcissist. And I guess he graduated from the Air Force Academy, making himself sound like he talks about the Air Force Academy like a high school football player, 20 years after they graduate, still talking about high school football. That's the way this guy is. Go look him up. Look at his picture. He looks like a fruitcake. And this thing that he runs is anything but religious freedom. It's basically to keep religion out. It's another one of these leftist, communist types of fake organizations or foundation. They even have the audacity to have "We the People" on their website on the top, as though they're really fighting for freedom. They're not. They're fighting against it. Now, the only other thing I want to say, before I close out, is that all of this stuff that I'm talking about with, do you understand what freedom is all about? If you took the oath of office and to be an officer or to be enlisted in the military, maybe you're a SEAL, maybe you're special forces, maybe you're a ranger, maybe you're a cop or an FBI agent, and you keep waiting while all these other people are standing up saying, and they're realizing what's happening. When you look at, for instance, Pittsburgh, I remember talking to somebody several years ago about how in Pittsburgh, in Ohio, there were several other states where they were moving. There's a group of people, and I don't have the name of it. I should have her back on to talk about this, where they are trying to take away individual ownership of land, which is exactly what the communists do. But Jack Dorsey from Twitter, who looks like a freaking homeless guy. He looks like Tom Hanks in Castaway after he'd been on the island for 4 years. That's how bad he looks now. I don't know what this guy has, but Pittsburgh is launching a guaranteed income program where he's donated a certain amount of money, and they're going to basically a number of people in the city of Pittsburgh will be chosen to be able to receive a monthly stipend, basically getting a debit card for nothing. They don't have to do anything for it. They're just going to be given that. And Dorsey tweeted, "This is one tool to close the wealth and income gap, level systemic race and gender equalities, and create economic security for families." You know what else does that, Dorsey? Families. Having a family unit, which the communists preach against, which you are also a part of that leftist ideology. You know what else helps create wealth and bridge that income gap? Jobs, putting people back to work, not closing down small businesses, which has happened now. Do you know what curves this quote unquote systemic race and gender equalities? It's called empowerment. Teach people that they can be whatever they want despite what other people may feel. As I spoke about in the beginning of the show, you teach people that, you will raise a generation of people who will go out and be whatever they want to be, no matter what the odds. If you want to make a difference, do that. But no, that's not the way the left works. They're just going to give free money to people and expect them to rise to the occasion. And this is the best quote out of all of this, okay? Stockton, California Mayor Michael Tubbs already did this in 2018. And this is his quote: "Mayors are the moral leaders of the country." I mean, this is like a comedy skit, right? But it's like really more like a horror story. Mayors are the moral leaders of the country? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. They have the word politician in the title of their career field. He says they're on the front line dealing with, responding to, and working for constituents each day. See, that's the key word, the constituents. In other words, for votes. This guy's a dirtbag. Absolute dirtbag. But when you look at the cities, it just gets better and better. When you look at the 11 cities advocating for guaranteed income, it is all of the worst Democrat mayors. You got the LA, you got Atlanta. I mean, they're just, it's predictable, as I talked about in a prior show, where you should look at the patterns and be able to see this. Again, I'm reaching out to those veterans and law enforcement, people from Naval Special Warfare, or any of the other branches. Do you not see the patterns? You've been trained to see this stuff. How could you not see what's happening? How is it that I continue to speak to people from these different branches of special forces and in law enforcement, and they either don't get it, like they're like, oh, it's not as bad as you think, or they say, well, it's just not time yet. It's not time. When is it going to be time? Are you going to allow the fall to happen and then react? That never works out. I don't know if you realize that or not. We were never taught that when it comes to war fighting. How is that your plan? How is there not meetings of the mind? How are law enforcement officers not seeing how they're being used? Do you not see that when you show up to a gym to kick them out, have you not even taken the time as a law enforcement officer to look at what I was describing in yesterday's show, which is this pattern where the numbers are just not adding up? It's just not adding up. The numbers of infected and the deaths. It's not like it was in March. And the only reason why it was like it was in March is because they put COVID positive patients in elderly clinics. It's not adding up. Are you not looking at that, police officers? Because you are enforcing mandates, right? You're not enforcing law. You're enforcing, in a lot of cases, the legislatures, like in New York, gave the power to legislate over to the governors. In other words, they made many dictators in the nation. Many and many. Okay? So there's a whole bunch of mini dictators. They're state dictators. And do you not realize this, law enforcement? When you're arresting people for riding with chalk on the sidewalk or for opening up a gym and actually going out of their way to make sure that people are socially distanced. Do you realize when you are stopping these church congregations that you're violating the Constitution because a governor mandated it, because the legislation didn't want to do their job? Do you not see this? I'm telling you, it makes me want to walk away from everything and just literally get in my RV and leave. I'd rather be living like Tom Hanks right now, spearing fish and being left alone, than to sit here and watch this country fall. And then, because I know that's what's going to happen, watch every single one of you say, we've got to band together now, or even worse, watch you all turn the leaf and start agreeing with the left. Heaven help us. I don't know if I can even stomach that. I mean, I've already literally basically lost several friends who are veterans, who were warriors. And they went so far left, which I explained again in another show, that they refer to AR-15s as assault rifles. That's how far left that they've gone. Complete jackassery. I just would never have thought in 1997, even before that, when I was in college training, as it took me 3 years to get in the teams, my recruiter didn't know what they were doing. I had to keep working on my PT scores to get them better and better until finally I got in and got a slot. That whole time I was training, I knew what I wanted to do. I'd already committed. That's why I made it through Buzz. I'd already committed to being a SEAL and then going on to being a federal law enforcement. I knew then. Had I knew then what I know now, wow, I still would have served, but I just wouldn't even, I would have said, there's no way that could happen. There's no way the people will rise up. No, it's not happening. There's nobody rising up. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to end it with, I'm not going to play the whole speech. I'm just going to play this portion of the speech that I gave and that I put on Twitter. Maybe next time I'll play the whole speech, but this really is I think the most important part of what I had to say. And it's going to be very similar to what I had to say today, but just listen to this.
Guess what? You're all one and the same. And until you start thinking of yourself as one and the same, you will continue to be chopped away. The left doesn't get it. The left doesn't get it. They have been chopped up. They're angry because they're black. They're angry because they're white. They're angry because they're gay. They're angry because they're straight. They're angry because they have privilege or they don't have privilege. You're an American. Yep. You have the right to be whatever you want. And if you can't, go be it anyway. You're not going to be able to do this in any other country. The left doesn't understand. They've been divided, and now they're being used. And you all are divided as well. You're divided in all these causes. There's one cause, freedom.
So here's what I want you to take with you today as you mill about doing whatever that you do. I want you to consider, what does freedom mean to you? Is it just something you're born with? Or is it something that you understand can be taken away? Do you understand that it's something that requires a commitment by the citizenry, not only to sustain, but to protect? Because I don't know if you realize this, but a nation that gets comfortable in its freedom will be subverted and eventually will be taken over by radicals. And in this case, it's the communists, and it's happening now. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.